Hello and welcome back to Bridging the Gap Student to Engineer. Today's video is on being inspired, exploring your options. This is going to be talking about choosing a major, but more generally about exploring your options in STEM. So let's get started. All right, so why STEM? You have an imagination to create. You talk about creating things, you make things. You have a vision for a better future. If you're somebody who walks around and thinks, wow, this would be great if we could, wouldn't it be great to improve this? I can create something new. Those are great qualities to have in somebody who's looking at going into STEM. Along with that is solving problems, overcoming challenges. Those are always part of creating something new or changing things for the future. Also, if you love to work as part of a team, and if you're a leader, those two attributes are really great to have as somebody who's working in a technical field. And then variety. If you're looking for variety, there are STEM jobs that do one thing all the time, but for the most part, what you're going to find is there's a blend of field work and office work. And there's a variety of things from the super small nanotechnology, you can't see it, but you're modeling it and creating new things, all the way up to space exploration and everything in between. So regardless of if you like things that you can't see or the things that you can see, it's a great option for you. Now, one thing or two things I'll say that are not on this list are I love math, I love physics, I love chemistry, those types of things. It used to be probably 20, 30 years ago that when we talked about engineering, the criteria were you are good at math and science and therefore you should go into engineering. The reality is, yes, math and science are important. Yes, we can do a lot of math and science in STEM fields, but the reality is that being an engineer, being a creator, being a technologist really takes somebody that has curiosity, imagination, vision, and can work with other people. The technical part of it can be important depending on what you want to do, but it is not necessarily a basic requirement for going into one of these fields. So let's talk about what drives you. The title of this video was Be Inspired. So let's talk about what inspires you. When you look around the world, what inspires you? I became an engineer personally because I love bridges. I don't know why I love bridges. I just think they're graceful, and they can be beautiful. They are very functional. They get people from one place to another. But if you look at things like the Golden Gate Bridge, the Sydney Harbor Bridge, all the way to freeway interchanges, there are a lot of things and elements that go into designing, building, maintaining all of those bridges. So that's what I love. That's why I became an engineer. Um, you may have something that's very, very different that inspires you, but just think about when you're in your daily life, when you start talking about a subject, what inspires you, what excites you. And then back to what I mentioned on the previous slide is, do you enjoy the seen or the unseen? This is really about, does it make sense for you to do something or work with something that's unseen, like electricity, chemistry, those kinds of things that we don't just see when we look around the world, but we know are impacting everything we do. Versus the seen, bridges, like I mentioned, are seen. Tunnels are seen. Rocket ships are something that we see. So is one or the other something that inspires you, or is there something that maybe is a blend of both things? If you talk about rockets, for example, there is a lot of chemical reaction and chemical engineering, electrical engineering that go into designing a rocket. So there's a lot of blends of these things, as we'll get into in a little bit. What about being a leader? So as you progress in your career, you will find yourself being more and more of a leader. You can find yourself being a leader when you're in high school or college or any other area of life. There are little kids who are leaders on the playground. But when you come out of school, you're going to have some technical knowledge. As you progress in your career, being a leader of people is very important. Okay, what about numbers and data analysis? I'm a huge fan of Excel. I mean, it's exciting what you can do in Excel. Not everybody gets quite as excited as people like myself. But if you like numbers, you like data analytics, you're excited about how we can use data and information to do things in our world. With the emergence of AI and those types of technologies, there's definitely a whole field that's related to STEM, or lots of fields related to STEM that you can go into, that are related to data and numbers. Okay, so where do you see yourself in 10 to 20 years? This is a really good question to ask yourself. And what I mean is not, I want to be a CEO of my own company, but really things like, what do you want out of life? Do you want to be living in the town you grew up in? Do you want to escape the town you grew up in? Do you want to be living in another part of the world? Do you want to stay where you are? Do you not really care? Do you see yourself with 12 kids? Do you see yourself being single? Those are things that you really should think about, because they can and they will impact your career decisions. For example, if you live in a small town and there is a factory making widgets in your town or maybe the next town over, and a lot of the people in your town work there, and you want to stay in your town. I have lived in small towns where people have said the only way to stay in town is to be a teacher, a nurse, or a police officer. Um, when you look at the other jobs that are in those towns, I'll just use a factory as an example because that's a lot in rural America. You might look at what that factory does. Regardless of what they do, they're going to need to have engineers that are helping them run the factory. A lot of manufacturing has industrial engineering, systems engineering, and they probably have some mechanicals. They might have civils depending on what kind of factory it is. So something for you to explore. But if you want to get out of your small town, I wouldn't say, avoid some degree that's going to help you stay there. But there are a lot of other degrees that are more likely to help you move around the world. Construction is one way of being able to move around and see different areas, because usually on large projects, you're going to have to move to be on the large projects. So something to think about. And if you'd like more information about that or you're thinking along those lines, definitely leave a comment and I will see if I can help you at all. Okay, do you want to dedicate your life to helping others? This is traditionally where a lot of people who go into medicine will say, I want to help others, so I'm going to go into medicine. Engineering is here to build the world around us. It's here to help people improve their lives. If you put in a wastewater treatment plant, you're helping a lot of people. If you're building an airport, you're helping a lot of people. But there are some disciplines within engineering and some types of industries where you're a lot more directly helping people. But every single type of STEM major is focused on improving the lives of lots and lots and lots of people. I am going to provide a link to the Dream Big Engineering Our World movie. And this movie is a really great way to be inspired on how engineers can help others. In the movie, you'll see engineers building a bridge in a rural country, a third world country, roller coasters, all different things that are really dedicated to helping others directly. Okay, and then the last one on here is a stable, high-paying career top priority. Depending on how you grew up, depending on what your current situation is or the situation you grew up in, you may have seen parents or guardians or other people that didn't have a stable, high-paying career. And so for some people, this is really important. STEM is a great way to have a stable, high-paying career. Particularly if you can get into some industries, the stability is just really, really there. There are some industries that are less stable that will probably pay you more, but it's something to consider as you're thinking about what's driving you and where you want to go. So I'm going to talk about different disciplines within STEM. These are mostly engineering technology related, but as you start looking at disciplines, what you're going to see is there's basic things that everybody talks about: mechanical, electrical, civil. But then as you keep going, you will discover that there are far more disciplines than you ever thought possible. And I have listed some here. You'll see that this is just like a full page of lots and lots of words, because there are a lot of things you can do with engineering. Essentially anything in our world that's built, designed, that helps our lives be better has some sort of engineering with it. I'm also going to provide a link that is to a YouTube video called Map of Engineering. It's by a channel that does a lot of maps, and they talk about a lot of these disciplines that are on here. But what I want you to think about is, yes, you may have heard about 3 different disciplines, or maybe your local university offers 5 different majors, but there is a lot more out there, and things that you may have not understood before, things that you will discover as you're in a university program going through education, and some things maybe you won't ever touch in your life. But if anything on here looks interesting to you, definitely look into it. There's one that's failure analysis, for example. I have a friend who has a PhD and has spent time doing failure analysis. If a bridge breaks or a building falls down, we've had some of those recently, they call in people who do forensics. This is not the forensics related to crime scenes. This is the forensics related to why did the building fall down. So there's a lot more than probably any of us know, but just keep your options open and think about things that maybe you have never heard of. Okay, but things to know about all this. There is a lot of overlap in disciplines. That full page, some of them are sub-disciplines of major disciplines. There's biological, biomechanical, there's a lot of different things just in bio. So don't worry too much if you're looking at programs and they only offer one type, or they have specialties but not a major in something, because there is a lot of overlap. And then once you get your degree, it's not going to define you. A degree does not define you, and it will likely not define your career. If you really want to go design automobiles, and cars are your thing, but the only university that you can afford, or that's near your home, or that you can live in while you're going to school, or for whatever reason doesn't have an automotive engineering, which is most likely the case, don't worry about it. Get a degree in mechanical or something related to it that can get you into that career choice that you want. Which kind of goes into this next point, which is a general degree is not going to prevent you from going into a specific specialty. So if you have something in mind you're very passionate about, well, I'll just use my example. Very passionate about bridges. I didn't major in bridge engineering. I majored in civil engineering with an emphasis in structural so that I could do bridges. But what I found out while I was there was I was also very interested in traffic engineering, transportation engineering, and the analysis of car flow. And so it's just really, when you're just looking at a discipline or looking at a degree, it's really about just kind of getting a general idea of where you want to go and looking for your options. And like I said, if the local university or the one that you can afford doesn't offer some specialty, don't worry too much about it. Okay, and then supply versus demand. If you've taken economics, you understand that there's supply and there's demand. Um, if everybody in the world wanted to go into AI, for example, or computer engineering, there's only a certain number of jobs in computer engineering. And so the supply and demand on that may be out of balance. I'm using that as an example. It's not a real life example. I'm just throwing it out there. Um, the best example I have for this is fire protection engineering. Everywhere I've worked, which is a lot of places, there's always a need for fire protection engineers. Well, what I have found out is there's only 4 or 5 schools in the US that are accredited for something like fire protection engineering. So, if you want a long-term stable job and a career in a specific field that there is always a need for people, fire protection is an example of something that you should look into. That may require you to move while you're in school to go to a different university that's not near you, or to go to a place that you never heard of. But long term, there are specific areas, specific industries where there's always demand for STEM majors. And then back to the variety and everything else, there is an amazing variety of jobs in every STEM discipline. There are resources out there, and I will provide resources for you, a link to a program called Engineering Expectations. They have some really good materials that talk to you about examples of jobs in different disciplines. Um, those are examples. They're not all inclusive, but they are a great way to start. Um, I have been in construction for a very long time. Construction needs pretty much all varieties of engineering, and in a lot of cases, technology to work together to construct something. Um, so if you want to be in construction, don't feel like you have to go get a degree in construction management. You can do a lot of different types of degrees that will get you to the same place. Okay. And then when we're talking about advancement, it's great that you have technical skills. It's great that you got a degree. It's great that you got it from a really important university that is highly ranked. But when it comes to advancement, the interpersonal skills are often much more important than your technical skills. When you think about your career, it's really going to be about that first step of getting a job, which we can talk about in future videos. But as you progress and as you move up into management, it's those interpersonal skills that are really, really going to be where you can differentiate yourself and how you are going to be able to become a manager. If you can't work with people, you can't manage people, and that would be very hard to be a manager. So something to think about as you're going through everything is, regardless of what you're doing, your interpersonal skills are important. And then all of this is your career path is going to lead you somewhere you can't imagine now. You can plan all you want, do a lot of research, find what you want to do. But I usually say that for every job you know about, there's about 1,500 jobs you don't know about. So that's okay. Don't get yourself locked into something that's what you always dreamed of doing and you don't want to do anything else, because there is a lot more out there than you can even imagine right now. Okay, so I'm going to provide a number of links in the description below so that you can easily access these. But some of the resources that I want to provide for you, the Dream Big Engineering Our World movie is absolutely fabulous. I think that you have to pay for the actual movie, but you can see trailers and see what it's about with the links that I'll provide for you. There's the Map of Engineering on YouTube that I mentioned earlier. Engineering Expectation is a website. They have workbooks that are pretty inexpensive and really great resources for anybody who's looking at different disciplines. And that's not just engineering, that's engineering, technology, and allied things. So please look into that. I also am going to provide a link to an engineering technology video on YouTube that talks about engineering technology and how that is related to engineering, but is not quite the same, and it may be very good for you. And then also, a lot of engineers go into project management. A lot of what we do in engineering is a project. It's something that you need to accomplish with a certain schedule on a certain budget, and that makes it a project. So I will provide a link to a video on a really great channel that talks about how to be a project manager. So that may be something that you want to look into. And then just offline, talk to a professional. If you don't know anybody who's in a STEM discipline, or you want more information, please request more information here. I've been in the industry a long time and know a lot of people, and hopefully can provide you with some answers. All right, so that's the end of the video today. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel so that you can get notified of upcoming videos, and we hope to see you here soon.